Okay, Seth Meyers.
How are you?
Our annual discussion here.
Yes.
I want to ask you first, on late night, you just had David Letterman on, which I
Yeah.
watched. You just seemed overjoyed, and he
Yeah.
doesn't really do that kind of stuff very well. I talked to Stephen Colbert last year, and that was his dream. He said that's his dream guest. So you got him before Colbert did.
Yeah, I guess it helped to be part of the late night franchise. It was a trip. I was so nervous about it. Thinking what kind of questions do you even ask David Letterman? And then the reality is you have to do very little when David Letterman is a guest on your show, because he knows so well what it takes to be a good talk show guest. And so he showed up with stories, and he was engaging and really funny. And, mostly your job when someone like David Letterman is there is just to try to get out of the way and let David Letterman have as much of the road as he wants.
He loves maladies and
Yeah.
sickness stories, or in
Yes.
your case, a delivery story.
Yeah.
He's always loved those kind of things.
And he likes talking about, I think it's far more interesting to him that he and I are both fathers than it is that he and I were both talk show hosts. And so he'd much rather talk about what our kids are like than what it's like to host a show.
Yeah, we went to the FYC event with him and Jerry Seinfeld for
Yeah.
Netflix, and they were interviewing each other.
Yeah.
And Dave kept wanting to ask Jerry about his kids, and Jerry did not want to talk about his family. So, and it was just over and over and over again.
Yes. And that was the other thing is Dave obviously showed up with some questions to ask me, more so than most guests on a talk show. And, one of the great thrills of my life is being a guest on his show. So that was what was also really fun about having him on mine, is it felt like a little of both.
Well, I've felt all these years, all these decades, that talk show hosts are often the best guests because they know what you're looking for on the other side.
Yeah.
They know to come with stories.
Yeah, I did. Obviously, there's just less and less reason to go on talk shows, but a few months ago, I went back on The Tonight Show, and it was so much fun. And also, just to know exactly what it is that you want to bring to a party. When you host parties all the time, you're like, oh no, you know what I want? A nice bottle of wine.
Yeah.
I don't want chicken wings that you got at Domino's.
And that probably those days leading up, what can I talk about? What are my stories?
I will say that when you're actively hosting a talk show, pretty much anything that interesting that would be a good talk show story you're telling on your show. So
Right.
It makes sense that we don't cross-pollinate as much as people probably think we should.
I was going to ask you, now that you do 4 shows a week, probably close to 200 a year.
Yeah.
When anything at all happens in your life, is the first thought through your mind, if it's bad or good, just I get to tell this story now. I know tomorrow night's show what I'm going to say at the desk.
100%. 100%. Like the fact. I've been so grateful to my wife for not only delivering a healthy son, obviously that's first order business, but the fact that she did in the lobby was so great. For a talk show host, no greater gift. Because again, hospital story, I'd already told one of those. I needed new stuff.
You needed new material.
Yeah.
What about, you had Jimmy Fallon on your show, and he had not returned there
Yes.
until this year. What was that like?
It was great. And, he was always a great talk show guest when he was a Saturday Night Live cast member. And again, he just has less reason to do it. And, I think it must be so, I certainly feel this way as well. When you are a guest on a show and you just have to worry about the 8 to 10 minutes that you're sitting at the desk talking, in our case, to an old friend, that's so much more relaxing than having to worry about the head to tail 1 hour of talk show. So, it's a nice relief to have so much less to worry about. And I think that's what makes us looser, better talk show guests.
Because you are daily, what's the typical day like? What do you do?
We start early. We get in around 8:30 in the morning, because so much of our first act is about the day's news, and the day's news changes so much over the course of the day that we want to make sure we get down a nice base coat early so we're not kind of building it from scratch. And, it's like, I feel like similar to most talk shows in that we have a long day based on reading jokes and talking about the guests and trying to line up the next couple of days. But it's so scheduled that it goes by really quickly, and it ends with the best hour of the day, from my perspective, which is going out to an audience that came to see the show and getting to actually, show them the work.
And we got to come to a taping in October. You really have a lot of interaction with your audience.
Yeah.
Off camera.
Yeah, we tried. It started out of necessity that when we had a band, I would have to go into the audience to talk to see if they had any questions for me, just because a band sometimes can be a longer setup. And then I just realized I really liked doing it. And I thought it was a nice way to thank the people. Obviously, I'm thankful for everybody who watches our show, but it would be very quiet and echoey if we didn't actually have the people who sat in those seats. And so it was a nice way to say thanks and just to go up and see what they had to ask.
Is there a question you would just assume they never ask again? Like one that comes up 2-3 times a week?
How's Stefan? I get asked how's Stefan all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And the person who asked it, God love him, thinks they're the first person who ever thought to ask
Right.
it.
Well, that happens on every question.
Yeah.
That's why we try on our interviews to come up with something that maybe
Right.
you're not hearing 10 times that day. What one thing you mentioned when you were just doing the Q&A with the audience was, and I thought this was interesting, you don't want Donald Trump, something to happen to him like a sickness or get impeached or something before. You want him to have the humiliation of a defeat in an election.
Well, I shouldn't say it's about the humiliation. I think it would just be nice if this was a problem solved by democracy, as opposed by a twist of fate or a legal maneuver. It would just, look, democracy gave us Donald Trump. I feel like it's their responsibility to figure out the next step.
Oh, he would have excuses and explain it away no matter what.
Well, of course, that is the issue. That whether this ends in impeachment or the ballot box, or he's informed for the first time about term limits, he's going to have a lot to say about how unfair that is.
Now, you hosted the Golden Globe Awards a
Yes.
few months ago. That'll also be on the Emmy ballot, in addition, of course, to Late Night.
Oh, will it?
It's been nominated several times. You know that because you've been up for writing on that. 75th anniversary too. So there was, I think whoever hosted, there was a little more pressure.
Yeah.
Just more eyeballs and more of a historical moment. What ultimately, once you got there and away from it, what was it like?
Well, I'm glad you said, because they'd asked me 70. I said no. 71 they asked. I'm like, not big enough. No, that's definitely I was I was really lucky to have been backstage working with Emmy and Tina the 3 years they did it. I have for my money, it's the most fun show to work on, and that's because it's probably the most fun show to be in the audience to watch. And so it was great. It was obviously an honor to get asked to do it, and I was lucky enough to be near the very high bar that Amy and Tina set when they did it, and I wouldn't say that I hit their heights, but I think I was hopefully in the ballpark. Because
it's a party and everybody's at tables and drinking, are they even listening?
They stay with you off the top. And the nice thing about the Globes versus other things I've hosted is most of your responsibility is off the top. And if you put your business there, you get their attention for, the 10, 12 minutes that you do monologue, and, that's where we put most of our efforts. You get them there, and then the rest of the time, it's not like, when the lights come up on you and you're about to introduce two new presenters, it's not like you're offended that Tom Hanks wants to talk to Oprah Winfrey. I mean, I wouldn't listen to Tom Hanks if I was talking to Oprah Winfrey.
Sit down, Tom.
Exactly.
How do you know what level of, we've had different approaches from Ricky Gervais and then Tina and Amy. How do you know that level of snarkiness versus just pure funny? I mean, how do you know where to dial it?
I mean, the biggest thing we were dealing with this year was obviously it was kind of the first post Harvey award show, and we, just had a lot of conversations about how to address that. And, we wanted to address it in a way that was, obviously took into account that the thing we were going to make jokes about caused a lot of people great pain. So that was the balance, and, hopefully we hit the tone right. But, at the same time, you want to do it in a way that doesn't take away focus from the fact that all this good work was done.
Back to Late Night for a moment. You've been in the writing category at the Emmys recently. You're doing an event with the Writers Guild tonight. You've been nominated by them too for Late Night. What does it mean to you? We would love to see the program get in, but what has it meant to you when the writers of all people are the ones recognizing you over and over?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I've always, based on my background at SNL and sort of the skill set that I feel like helped me survive at SNL in the early years, like I've always identified as a writer. The writing staff of my show are the ones I spend the most time with. They're a group I'm really lucky to have on staff. And so it's really nice, because that honor is spread around to all of us equally. And so it was a real thrill last year to have that.
And Larry David joined your writing staff.
It was really good, wasn't it?
That was a great episode.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
He's great always on panel, but to have that too.
Yeah.
Where you shoot that
we couldn't
in
believe
advance.
he said yes, because Larry sounds like a person. I think Larry would tell you he's a person that enjoys saying no to requests of his time.
Yeah.
But he came in and
I
he
tried
shot
to take a
best
photo
that
with him,
afternoon.
and that didn't work out too well. Oh, he took it, but it's as blurry as you would think it would be, because he wasn't holding still.
Right.
What did he come up with a lot of that he did, or did you help him?
we wrote a first draft, and then, as you would expect, we tried to write as close to Larry's voice as possible, but certainly no one does it better and knows it better than him. So, for the guys who wrote that piece, they couldn't have been happier when Larry came in and had his ideas, and they got to collaborate with one of their heroes.
Rip some of them to shreds.
Yeah, again, that's like, you would pay...
That's an honor.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a good raffle item. Yeah.
Well, back to the Emmys, you hosted last time it was on NBC.
Yes.
Believe it or not, that's 4 years ago now.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
rotating around again.
Flew
I
by.
was surprised you weren't this year's host. What happened?
I think I managed to dodge it by doing the Globes.
Oh.
I feel like,
They didn't want them too close together.
Exactly. You can't. How many are you allowed to host in one given year? So,
I mean, you'll be back on the Globes next time?
I don't know. It was. I couldn't have asked it to be more rewarding than it was this year. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to seeing Shay and Jost. I think they'll be great. And,
What advice would you give them?
I would just say to have like as good a jokes as possible off the top, but those guys have that every week at Update, and they're going to approach it via the same history that I approach it, because that's all I had done by the time I was doing that. So I think they'll be great.
And they got Lorne Michaels producing the Emmys this year.
He's just gonna roll up his sleeves. I think he's already writing jokes.
He's only done it one other time.
Is that true?
The odd thing for me was I was telling somebody really high up at NBC that before they ever announced, and they were looking for a producer and looking for figuring out the host, and then like a month later they announced him. I thought, did they go back and look at the one I told them to look at?
Yeah.
Because he had a really inventive Emmys.
I think
late '80s. You can find some of it on YouTube.
Shoemaker was there.
Oh, were you on the writing staff?
It was I was like an assistant. It was '88. It was very inventive. It looked different. It was unlike any of the others.
He had some reunions of like older casts of things. I don't remember which ones.
Right.
But he also had some not older, but I remember Dana Carvey, who was on SNL in that moment, and Jane Curtin presented together. It was just nice little combinations.
Yeah.
Like Gail Gordon. He wanted some real icons. I think it might have been another anniversary year, I guess.
Oh right, '88. What's this year of the Emmys? Yeah.
This is 70, so he might have done 88.
Okay. Oh yeah. So '88 would have been 50. No, I'm wrong. '88 would have been 40.
Yeah, 40.
Yeah.
And he had a designated acceptor. He had Tony Danza.
Oh right.
Oh yeah, I didn't like that.
Well, it kept.
Well,
going.
there were several that weren't there, so it
Yeah.
it was like over and over. It wasn't like one time for the night
Yeah.
or 2 times.
It's crazy when you. Because I feel like the Emmys these days, you don't see that many people who aren't there.
No, there was a stretch. We were talking about the Oscars, like 70s, early 80s, where it was like a badge of honor not to go.
Yeah.
So I think that was the case on some of the. I mean, if it was a movie star, like doing a movie
Yeah.
for TV, there was no way they were coming.
Right.
Well, good luck with everything.
Thank
I'm
you.
hoping to see you in some more categories for this year's
I appreciate it. It
Emmys.
was very nice of you to say.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, man. Great to see you again.
Yeah.